I have Matthew Rehwoldt with me right now. The Drama King has made his return to wrestling with Impact Wrestling. You may have seen him uh, doing Wrestling with Whiskey in the Chicago area, but now he's back on a national platform with Impact Wrestling. We're going to talk about his alliance with Deonna Purrazzo and what he's been up to since then. First things first, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good. Uh, Timing is everything. I thought this was kind of a funny way to start the conversation. I know last year we spoke, and people thought you were the guy with the whiskey glass in the Slammiversary promo, and it wasn't you. And you did say you would never put ice in your whiskey, you would never chill it. But I thought it was fitting that then you do have a promo on this year's show. So a year later, what made Impact the right spot for you? How did it come together? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. No, it was a crazy year for like it was for so many of us. Obviously, not even just wrestling, but the world at large. And I, 2020 into early 2021, it was a lot of figuring out my next steps and figuring out my next moves. And I spent a lot of time doing things like Wrestling with Whiskey, the Drama King Matt Twitch channel, things like that. But I had always kept in touch with some of my friends in the wrestling business, primarily guys like Eric Young, who was, and Sammy Callahan, guys who kind of Impact Wrestling stalwarts. And they'd always told me, they're like, hey, Impact likes you, if and when the right opportunity is there, they'd really like to do something. So I just kind of, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. It takes the stars lining up, so to speak. And with this year's Slammiversary, and then shortly after the homecoming tournament that was being planned, they were looking for a partner for Deonna Purrazzo. And Deonna, as we all know, is this very high form athlete. She walks on airs in the wrestling world, and rightfully so. And so, I'd like to think the Drama King walks on airs a little bit too. So they get the kind of the timing and the marriage of styles and the calendar kind of worked out. And so it seemed like a perfect fit. And one of those things where it seemed like it was on paper. And, when I showed up and we started working together, it was just like it clicked from moment one, and off to the races we went.
Yeah, I think that's something that really stands out. You guys complement each other nicely. Some of the time you put these two people together and then kind of have to explain what their common goal is, but it just goes without saying, like, you have this distinguished taste in your own respective ways, and it just, how creatively satisfying is it just to walk into something like that instead of I'm sure you've had it happen in the past year where they want you to revisit what you've already done, where this really expands on what you can do and gives you a new outlet where you're really I already said compliment, but you're really like on the same level instead of being a supportive character to the other person.
Yes, no, and you hit the nail on the head. Like, especially like you said over this last year, what, I have no problem. Nostalgia has its place, and like in both entertainment and wrestling, especially. But I'm a huge fan. I say this very publicly a lot. Like, I'm a move forward kind of person. I don't want to live in the past. I will totally acknowledge it and recognize all the great things that have happened, especially to me. But anytime I step somewhere, especially when I take a step into somewhere new, I want to forge something new, even if it's building off of things I've done before. I will always be the Drama King, but let's evolve that forward. And so even something small, like I came to Impact with like, hey, I could be this name, this name, this name, and I was head back with, well, why don't we use your real name? It's kind of, we'll call you Matthew, but Rehwoldt, it's nobody else has that name. And I always thought, I'm like, oh, that's hard to pronounce. Nobody will like that. But they were like, no, like that makes you different. It kind of makes you more highfalutin. It's this interesting name that we're not sure how to necessarily pronounce, and everything like that. And so to be able to evolve this character that I've kind of had going for the past several years, and to be put on a platform, like you said as well, kind of on the same level as someone, again, who's as well respected and well loved as Deonna Purrazzo was an honor unto itself. And then so be able to take that and use this platform to continue to evolve that persona and that character forward, it's huge for someone in this business, especially me.
Yeah, and I know this was somewhat of a funny exchange, but you mentioned that you were using Matt Morris for a while, and I'm sure your given name is easier to market, easier to trademark if you're looking to do that. But I did appreciate the exchange where Matt Cardona maybe took a dig at it, and you told Nick Gage to mess him up for you because it had some personal meaning, and he took a shot at you.
Yeah, no, I love going back and forth with Cardona on Twitter. He's always a good sport. He was good for a good rib. But it actually. So I was using that. Morris is my mother's maiden name. That is a true story. I may have embellished all of it, like some family tragedy or something to make it feel bad. But yeah, Morris was my mother's maiden name. I thought it would be easier for everyone, and that's what I was going to use earlier on in my kind of indie experience there. But then when the Impact opportunity came up and we decided on Matthew Rehwoldt, I like that better. And so going forward, that's what things will be. But like I said, I've said online, you might see Matt Morris pop up on a couple posters here because it was just agreed months ago. But yeah, it's been an interesting little run there.
Yeah, there you go. I know I'm sure you've had to explain it before, but anybody listening or that will read this, you're setting the record straight. But I know that like it was an issue with New Japan, but going forward in Impact and after that, Matthew Rehwoldt, the Drama King. Without getting too far ahead, I know you mentioned that you had this idea for like a tortured artist gimmick, and what we're seeing on TV is a little bit more, I'll say refined, but is that something, the tortured artist gimmick, you want to maybe explore down the line? Because that teaser promo kind of felt like it was in that vein where it was very dark, foreboding, it kind of had like the messy quality with just like the brushstrokes of writing the name on it. Like any desire to go that way?
Yes. And I have a feeling in the weeks and months ahead, you'll see a little taste of it. Again, I don't think it's something that can be told over time. I didn't want to come out the gate necessarily with something so stark and that character also needs time to be explained and to evolve. Especially, coming right out, and the first thing you see me do is in this mixed tag team tournament with Deonna. I didn't want to have to try to forcibly explain some dark, complex character in the middle of a mixed tag team tournament. So I thought, come on, just take the opportunity, take the stage, show them who you are, in the ring and stuff like that. And like I said, as you'll see in the weeks and months, we're going to start exploring that side of the character for sure. It's something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, and keep watching Impact every week on Access, Impact Insiders. I don't want to tease too much, but I figured there was a lot more layers to peel back for that. I'm excited to see what comes from it. Another thing that you were known for, you'd been on 205 Live. You said it was a privilege to call commentary there, but are you strictly with Impact as a wrestler or a performer? Any discussions to maybe do more commentary or broadcast work with the company? Like, just because you spoke so highly of having that role before, is that something you'd like to go back to, or are you focused on wrestling right now?
So for right now, as far as my role within Impact, I'm there as an in-ring performer first and foremost. That's the opportunity given to me. But don't get me wrong, I truly did. I fell in love with the broadcasting side of things. Hence, you've seen me do it in New Japan. I just had the honor to call my first New Japan event at Resurgence a couple of weeks ago, which, wow. To be able to call, a Tanahashi match, Yuji Nagata and Jon Moxley in a tag team match, things like that were incredible. But don't get me wrong, I'm not going to shun away from the opportunity to join D'Lo Brown and Matt Striker in the booth and call some Impact action, especially maybe if my partner, Deonna Purrazzo is in action and you need a little extra, pizzazz on the broadcast booth. No, I really like that side. I'd like to expand doing broadcasting, outside of wrestling potentially too. So that's another side of the business and of entertainment in general that I'm really interested in.
Yeah, now that you mention it, that would be a fun little exchange if it was as somebody supporting Deonna. So who knows what we'll see in the future. One of the other reasons I asked is you're expanding your Wrestling with Whiskey channel a little bit. It originally started as kind of like opening the door to, invite fans into whiskey tasting and, a little bit of being a connoisseur, but you're expanding to interviews. I think it's a really fun way to bridge that gap. If anybody listening wants to check it out, it's called Straight Shootin. I just thought, maybe there was something there, but what has been the most fun doing that on your channel? Just going from showing whiskey to now inviting other people, other peers into it.
Yeah, so like the kind of inspiration came from, so like you said, the channel started out as me when I was starting my own journey into like collecting and trying to taste whiskey and enjoy the finer points of it. Be a snob about it. Let's just to be honest, right? I like your word, connoisseur, better. That's how it all started with me going down this journey, and now I'm like, I've got all these friends in wrestling that people are always keen to hear from. I never really had aspirations to be necessarily an interviewer or podcaster, but I'm like, I got a lot of friends, and let's see if I can introduce them to what I know, because I think a lot of people do have a little bit of especially in America, I think, preconceived notion about whiskey is it's just something you shoot back and you chase with a beer and stuff like that, and it's not to be enjoyed. It's just to be burned on the way down and forget about it. And I had learned a really good appreciation for it. Like, maybe even if I can't turn them into what I am, maybe I can give people an appreciation for something that they don't know a whole lot about. And in the meantime, we can talk about wrestling and life and everything in between. And so I definitely didn't want to do just another wrestling podcast, because there's so many of those and so many that do it very, very well. This is my own spin, and it does bridge that gap. If you're a wrestling fan who doesn't know much about whiskey, maybe you'll learn a little bit as I walk some of my friends through a tasting. And if you're a whiskey fan and you don't know much about wrestling, you'll be curious to see what we're drinking. But then, hey, you might learn a little bit about these athletes and entertainers. So trying to kind of marry those two communities together has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the best way that I could sell this, if people haven't checked it out, is if you're a fan of Hot Ones, where they take people from all different walks of life and eat hot sauce and hot wings, this is going to be right up your alley too. It's bourbon and whiskey, and it's having a drink instead of sweating while you eat.
Yes, and shout out to Hot Ones. That was one of the other prime inspirations too. I remember talking with a friend. We're like, man, if I could just do that with whiskey. And I'm like, well, maybe I can't do 10, but maybe we can do 3 small ones, and it would still be fun. And it's been great.
Yeah, if you guys want to check it out, just search Wrestling with Whiskey on YouTube. You can check out all the videos that are up there. I know you actually just posted a new video with Deonna and Steve Macklin, so that's up there. And then check Matthew out on Impact Wrestling every week on Access TV and Impact Insiders on YouTube. Thanks very much for your time today.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.